high atop the pastoral center of the Diocese of Camden, you're listening to Talking Catholic.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Talking Catholic. It's Carrie Janice here. I'm with my good friend, Mike Walsh.
Hi, Carrie. How are you?
I'm great, Mike. How are you?
Well, you know what? We are being good Catholic podcasters right now. We are recording early. So when folks listen to this, it'll be early January, but we're actually recording this on, December 21st?
We're leading up to Christmas.
So it's nice.
We're almost there.
But we're already focused on the new year. I've actually thought about this. You know, before we started the podcast, I was trying to think about what the new year is going to be like for me. It's going to be busy for me. I've decided. It's going to be very busy. Well,
what do you have going on?
At this point, if I were a betting man, I would tell you that there's most likely going to be a new bishop in the Diocese of Camden.
I feel like I heard this like 3 different times in the past 3 years.
I said it a lot. I know.
So I don't believe it.
But the little rumor mill has hit another gear.
Yeah,
so I'm
that makes me excited.
Yeah, well,
tell me more.
That's the problem with the rumor mill. There's never facts.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's stuff like that. But
well, can you tell me? All right, when a new bishop comes, like, what happens? How will it be announced? And I'm sure our listeners want to know this too. Sure. And then, like, what's going to make your life so busy? I mean, like, I understand it, but I don't. So I want to, sure. and maybe our listeners have these same questions. So
when what will happen first is the new bishop will get a phone call from the Apostolic Nuncio, who is, Cardinal Christophe Pierre at the moment. And he's essentially the ambassador
for the U.S. from
Rome.
Mm-hmm.
And so he'll make a call to the new guy. And the new guy will say yes or no. They can say no.
Wow,
it is possible
they got the option.
The new guy may be a priest. The new guy may be an already
auxiliary bishop,
or
a current bishop,
or an ordinary someplace
bishop,
else.
Yeah.
You never know. And they will make that decision. And then once they've made that decision, then the nuncio gives the current bishop of Camden a call, Bishop Sullivan.
You can officially retire.
He's like, and it'll be something along the lines of, I got good news. Because not that Bishop Sullivan wants to go anywhere. He's been a great bishop and he loves the job, but, you know, he's rolling in on 79 at this point.
Yeah.
And, you know, he tells everybody.
He's in overtime.
Half of his homilies are like, I hope I'm not here next year.
Yeah.
and he means it in the nicest way possible. But he's 79 years old, so he's ready.
Yeah.
He's no fool. And so then now that could happen anywhere from a couple of weeks to a week to just a couple of days before the announcement is made public. At which point I'll find out without a lot of time. I might find out a day. I'll probably find out a day in advance because we'll have to prepare for the next day.
Right.
At that point, we're putting together a press conference.
You're texting me. Let me know.
I believe it's technically still it falls under not an apostolic secret, but an apostolic something else.
So you have to remain quiet.
So you have to remain quiet.
Okay.
I can't tell anybody.
Fair enough.
So you will not get a text message from me.
All right.
You won't even get a wink from me. It'll be, but I will, as soon as 6:30 that morning rolls around, so it's 6:30 that morning, 12:30 Rome time is when they announce it. So it's around 6:30 our time. And the first people to announce it will be the USCCB. And so the press release will go out at 6:30 in the morning, but we'll already have our stuff up. It'll link to whatever it needs to be linked to, and that will be when the announcement happens. So
okay, so follow-up question on that. When USCCB announces it, do they do multiple ones at the same time, or could this just be Camden's? Or is it like they're anticipating a couple?
You can have more than one announcement on a day.
Because, like, if someone's moving over and someone has to fill that spot, like, you know how, like, when priest changes happen and it's like the domino effect, like...
No. Generally, no, because it won't ordinarily be someone who's already a bishop, an ordinary bishop somewhere.
It could just be a new one.
It most likely is going to be a new one.
That's exciting. So someone like younger, fresh.
Yeah, more than likely that.
Yeah, because we're a smaller diocese, not like a metropolitan. Well, we're kind of metropolitan area, but like we're not like Philadelphia, you know. No. Like, so it'll be different. Okay. And there was another question I had, and now it's escaped me, but. That's okay.
It's okay.
It wasn't that important. It was something along the lines of when they name a new bishop, and him saying no or not. But
what's interesting is technically
it escaped me.
When a bishop is named, he's the new bishop that minute. Like he then
even if he's not ordained.
Well, if he's not ordained, he's not.
Okay.
But if he's already an ordained bishop,
okay, that's
the guy.
Yeah.
And I could be wrong. Well, he's not. He's not ordained. He is ordained. Yeah, he's ordained. I could actually, you know what? Now that you mention that, I need to double check that, because if it's a sitting bishop, I think he's got the job right that very second. I don't know if he gets the job just for being a bishop elect. I'll have to look into that. That's a good question.
Like, if he's not a bishop already, if he's just a priest, right? And
Not
he gets asked to be a bishop. Well, yes, I'm just saying he's not doesn't have the sacrament of the ordination to being a bishop at that point. Could he also say no? Like, I don't want to become a bishop?
Anybody can say no.
It's always a choice.
Yeah,
wow.
No. The problem is that the reason as I've been told, the reason you don't want to say no is no guarantee you're going to get asked the second time.
Well, yeah.
So that's usually.
But I mean, it's like anything; it's a calling, right? So if he doesn't feel called to it at that point, you say.
I mean, the person could be that they don't want to come to Camden, or it could be that they just don't feel drawn to
the calling of a bishop. Yeah. Or
it's a lot of stress. It's a whole nother level of the priesthood.
Can you imagine?
Quite literally, it's a whole nother level of priesthood. And some people have no interest in that. But
this is really exciting. Well,
let's hope, because Bishop Sullivan who's been a fantastic bishop for the Diocese of Camden. He says repeatedly he's ready to go. So.
No, I know. He's wished me Merry Christmas twice now, because on March 25th at the Diocese Eucharistic Congress, he wished everybody Merry Christmas, because he said 9 months from now he wasn't going to be here.
That's right.
And then I got a Christmas card in the mail from him saying Merry Christmas. I was like, wow.
Got to talk to him. But
got it twice.
I like the fact that he's always hopeful.
Yeah.
But so
he's a good bishop. He served us well.
He has.
10 years, right? 2013 did he come in?
2013, yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you talked about two things happening on the same day. When Bishop Sullivan was, when he was installed, was the same day, or the day after, I guess maybe, that Pope Benedict announced his resignation.
Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
I know. That's why I knew it was 2013, because I actually remember that when Pope Francis came in more than when Bishop Sullivan came in. I just knew it was. And
it was a shame,
the same
too.
year.
We got to, because that was before I was part of the diocese as the communications director. But he ended up getting, most of the questions he was asked was not about him becoming Bishop of Camden.
Yeah,
most of the
Pope.
Yeah, most of the media questions were about. So, how's it like being in South Jersey? And what do you think about Pope Benedict resigning?
Yeah.
So that was he got sort of. Not that he got a lot of press out of it because of it. They got a lot of coverage out of it, which is good. Yeah. But that was not the question he anticipated answering that day.
And normally wouldn't, under normal circumstances, be that. So.
Hadn't happened in 600 years at that point.
Yeah.
So definitely different.
That is true.
But anyway, so that's
cool.
It'll be cool stuff, and there's all these like cool elements of an installation, a bishop installation, like the Vespers the night before, which is always great, and then the actual installation.
And will they be public, or invite only? How is that gonna?
Yeah.
Our Lady of Hope.
Theoretically, everybody's invited to them, but depending on who it is that we're getting, it might change. If it's at the cathedral's a smaller church.
Yeah, you didn't get many people.
So my money is that the Vespers would be there, because usually less people come out for Vespers. And then whatever our biggest church is probably going to be will be where the installation is.
Or Incarnation?
No, the two Wildwood
Mary
churches.
Mom. Oh, that's right. Wildwood.
Yeah, Wildwood down.
They're 2,000.
Yeah, if we need space for 2,000.
St. Anne's. St. Anne's in Wildwood.
Yeah. So.
I got the little ornament in the mail the other day of St. Anne's.
Nice?
I was so cute. I want a Newman Center one time. Can we put in for that?
So
part of the collection.
I found out how that happens. So for our listeners who don't know, in the Diocese of Camden, if you are a donor to any of our donation vehicles, at the end of the year, the fundraising department, the development department, sends you a very lovely ornament of a church and or parish in the diocese. And it is done based on, this is what I was told a couple years ago, it was based on the age of the church. So they were going oldest to newest.
Oh.
Or age of the parish. Parish or church, I can't remember which one. But
probably parish, because St. Anne's was like little.
Yeah, must be parish.
Yeah.
And the original parish. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So what's next in line? Do we know?
I don't know. I never asked him about it. It's always a surprise to me because I got it the other day too, and I was like, oh. Yeah. I was not expecting to see Notre Dame.
I would like to know what it was said. It was the 20th one. I'd like to know what 1 through 19
what the order was.
Yeah.
I'll have to ask. That's what they told me though.
I wonder if St. Bridget's.
It could also be that they gave me bad information.
And Our Lady of Peace. I mean, that was older too, and then it was rebuilt. It's like early.
The one at Pitman you're talking about?
No, Our Lady Peace in Williamstown.
Oh, Williamstown.
Yeah.
Was that one already went up?
It was like on the other side. I don't know. I want to know numbers 1 through 19.
You know what?
That's your homework, Mike.
You've mistaken my
Who's
abilities.
in that department? Is it Stacy who was just on the podcast?
Stacy Napolitano.
She's just on the podcast.
Just promoted. She didn't remember?
I did
was
see
that part of it?
Yeah.
So she's the new director of development. So that sounds like an excellent question for Stacy Napolitano.
I'll email her that later.
You should.
Find out.
And then you should talk to Stacy about coming in as a speaker for the Catholic Business Network monthly meetings. Because I think you'd be an excellent speaker for them.
All right. I got my homework now.
There you go. So
All right.
we'll make that. And I'll put a good word for you with Stacy.
Sounds good.
You can tell it's close to the end of December. My ability to enunciate's out the window.
All right, we should stop talking and get to our three hosts, three guests here today.
Ordinarily, that would be me digressing, but you asked really good questions.
Yeah, I was excited. I mean, I think especially
I can't wait to find out how much information I got wrong.
The idea of a new bishop coming in, I think that's worth a 10-minute digression.
Oh, well,
for sure.
Whenever that actually happens, there will
It'll be, I'm sure, a whole podcast.
Oh no, there'll be an emergency podcast.
Yeah,
like we will put out a podcast that day.
So who's on that? Like Father Hughes?
Who?
Like who would be on that? Oh, like the new bishop himself?
No, we wouldn't get. I doubt we'd get. Well, we might get the new bishop. I don't know. I'll tell you this: I'm getting a lot of people that keep complaining to me. I'm getting. How can I put this? I'm getting criticisms that we've never had Bishop Sullivan on.
Oh, well, then that would be the one.
No, we're definitely going to have him on.
His farewell podcast.
Yeah, but I'm going to refer to it as the exit interview.
Can I be a co-host for that?
Actually, I want all of us to be a co-host.
All right, let me know.
Like I'll bring in all the hosts for that one.
Let me know.
But I don't know if Bishop Sullivan will be on the board with that, but we will. But yeah, but when a new person, there will be an emergency podcast that very day. Maybe we'll get the new bishop on. That would be fun. But it will definitely be Father Hughes, the Vicar General of the diocese, or Father Rocks, the Chancellor of the diocese, to come on, and we'll talk about all of the bells and whistles.
Yeah,
and they can
that's a good
refute
one.
all of the mistakes I made in this edition.
It's all right. You gave people something to think about.
Yeah. Plus, they're fun. When the Bishop of Metuchen was announced a couple of years ago.
Cecchio,
right? Bishop Cecchio. He was at the time he was a priest of the Camden diocese.
I know.
So because
on
of that,
loan to the neck, right?
Exactly. We were allowed to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So I got to see all the what happens when something happens, which is great.
The pictures were great. I remember seeing that.
I feel prepared for this,
Yeah.
so it'll be nice. Anyway, you're right. We do need to get on it because you came up with a great idea.
As I always do.
As you always do. You have great podcast ideas. You came up with a great podcast idea for the beginning of January.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm always thinking locally. I'm always thinking the people I know, the great talent that's out there, and just what would be a good podcast that people would enjoy hearing about and maybe even going a step further with, whether it be in their faith or some other route, which I think in this case would be some deeper diving into reading. So
the only thing you and I are in agreement with.
Yeah.
We neither one of us are big readers.
I know. And I apologize in advance to our audience and to our guests that it's just something I've struggled with my whole life. I'm a doer, I'm a mover, not a sitter. I fall asleep when I read. Yeah. So I've never liked it, but the few times I've sat down and read, I've enjoyed it. And I actually enjoyed the friendship with all three of these authors, and they're people of our diocese. They're locals. They're right here in South Jersey, and they've written three very different books. Three contrast. There's nothing alike. The commonality between them is that they're all Catholic, and that their faith is infused in different parts of the book, whether it be as a whole, or the whole topic, or even just some part of the aspects of it. So I'm gonna let them each introduce themselves and maybe their book.
Sure.
You want to do that?
So, starting to my left, if our first author would like to give us his name and the name of his book.
Sure. Hello, I'm Domenic Scarcella, and my book is called Good Neighbor, Bad Citizen. It's reflections on the core social conflict revealed by Jesus Christ's way of the cross.
Look at that. A nice read. And I should point out that Dom and I have known each other for a long time. We're both in the same Knights Council. And
yes, sir.
Yeah, he's a heck of a great guy.
Dom and I have known each other a long time, too. Actually, the longest out of our three guests, believe it or not.
Everybody knows Dom.
Yeah. If you don't know Dom Scarcella, you got to get to know this guy.
You're not a real Catholic if you don't know Dom.
Yeah, Dom and I go back to my first youth ministry job right here at St. Bridget's.
Get out, wow.
Yes.
15 years ago.
Yeah,
2009? I don't know. Almost 15 years. 2008? I don't know, somewhere around there, yeah.
Yep.
So we've been Facebook friends ever since, but we've worked together closely, especially in the last 2 years.
And this is like the 367th episode we've done, and she didn't get you on here before now. I apologize.
That's quite all right. I've probably had not much to say until now. Like I needed the right topic and the right setting with two other authors as well to be here. So
perfect.
Yeah.
I think the timing is perfect.
You know what? Then the Holy Spirit was at work. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
And our next author.
Hey there, I'm Nicole. I'm fixing my microphone thing, and now we're all laughing. Good intro. I'm Nicole Rollender. I'm in Williamstown, New Jersey. I am a poet, and my latest book is called The Luster of Everything I'm Already Forgetting. Other poets told me it was a horrible idea to have a long title, but both my books have long titles, and people always comment that they're fascinated by that. I could have picked like one word, but I do have to say my third collection, which I've started working on, is called Misericordia, one word.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Nice.
So,
but a different language, and I appreciate that too.
Latin.
Oh, that'll be good. And we should also say a returning guest.
Returning, yes. And another good friend of mine.
Another good friend of yours. And though the first time in person, right? Last time we did it via Zoom.
Yeah, that was COVID land.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
Here we are.
Right.
We're less than 6 feet apart, and we're okay.
We're all surviving and thriving.
Hey, listen, thank goodness. And our last author is...
Hi, my name's Laura Quinn. I'm from Williamstown. I write historical fiction set at the Jersey Shore. My first novel is called Thicker Than Water. It's part of a trilogy. And it's basically Boardwalk Empire meets Titanic. It's set in Philadelphia and the Jersey Shore during World War I. And a lot really happened in our area during that time frame, with some romance kind of sprinkled in. What's really ironic, and I would just like to say thank you so much to you and Carrie, for having us on. Mm-hmm. Nicole is not only a really talented poet, but she was one of my early readers when I was still, drafting the novel. And Carrie was also, involved when I launched the novel. I did a book drive for youth with a really, really amazing local company called Book Smiles, and they take gently used books and redistribute them to the underserved in the Philadelphia and South Jersey area. And, with your help and, really the youth group at Our Lady of Peace in Williamstown, we were able to raise like over 2,000 books for these kids. And that was amazing. So to be here with both of you kind of brings everything kind of full circle.
Full circle here. And another good friend of mine. I mean, this is, the Lord connects us all. Like
He definitely
through church.
does. Absolutely.
And through your children, for each of you, with the youth group, and Dom through youth group as well, just as a volunteer and helping out. So it's really cool to all be here, kind of bring it all together. And when I was thinking of this idea, it was actually because Dom was talking to me about his book. I'm like, yeah, we could bring Dom on the podcast. I was like, wait a minute, I know other Catholic authors too.
You know a lot of authors.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Here's the thing. So Dom and I have known each other for quite some time.
Yeah.
And Nicole's been on before. I bet you didn't know I actually have a connection to Laura too. I'm not sure Laura knows I have a connection to Laura. One of your readers is one of my best friends.
Really?
Matter of fact, not only that, this very book.
That is so flattering.
This very book.
So you've seen that book before.
I went. My very best friend and I went searching. We were on vacation. Hold on, wait! Don't jump on my bit.
I know.
We were actually on vacation down in outside of Cape May.
Yep.
Her family, my family. We went searching through.
Yep.
We went search. She was like, Mike. I have to show you this book because I helped the author write it. We searched a whole bunch of different places. We weren't able to find it, which made me feel very happy because they meant they were sold out of it. That was great. I was like, that's good for the author. Erin Hench is...
Oh, my Lanta! Yes, she is amazing. She was also one of my early readers, and one of my biggest champions, and she's amazing. She's just salt of the earth, amazing person.
She and I have worked together for 20 years, and I got news for you.
Oh,
and I told Erin I was going to talk...
The world just shrank.
Oh, yeah. I told her I was going to talk about her on the podcast.
Hi.
I said, of all the people I know, I never would have anticipated Erin, who is one of the most intelligent, incredible, logistical people I've ever met. She and I worked events all our lives. Never would have occurred to me to use her as a beta reader for anything. Yeah. Did she give you good feedback?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
all that matters.
Absolutely.
Well, she was very excited, and we literally went to like 4 different bookstores looking for it. So she was really excited to see it, and so I'm very happy we finally got you on the show. So thank you for that.
Wow. Well, you're welcome.
I know. Once again,
Thank you for going to multiple stores to look for my book. The shore has been really kind to me. So
I have a question about
it's
this.
been really kind to me.
What is the reader? What does that mean? Like they just proofread it and like give you feedback? Give us some insight, because this is somebody that doesn't understand this world.
Sure. No, that's a great question. So a beta reader, and you guys jump in, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong or speaking out of turn, but when I use the term beta reader, it's a lay reader. It's an avid reader of someone within my genre that has the free time on their hands to look through an early version of my manuscript, just from a reader's standpoint. There might be grammatical errors, there might be plot holes, there might be instances with characters that might not sit with that reader, or traits about the character that they absolutely love. So you're just really looking for feedback. And then, I took that and made some more revisions, and then I brought in like professional editing with a developmental editor. They look at a big picture, and then you have a line editor, which goes literally line by line through your work, and looks at sentence structure, things of that nature, and then, proofreading, which is what it sounds like. But if I missed anything, or if you guys have a different process...
what it tells me is that the two of us really need to respect the genre more by reading it. Look at all the work that goes into that book.
No, this is filling out the picture for me, because I never realized all that. Now, when you have beta readers, how many do you have? Because I just got like a little like anxiety thrust thinking all this feedback you got, and now you got it from different people reading it, and now you got to put it on, like change it, and that just seems like a lot.
Well, that is another really great question, and I'm sure we all have different processes as well. This is my debut work. And
a substantial debut work.
It's a big book. I like big books, and I cannot
500
lie.
Pages, yeah.
It is almost 500 pages. So I was so flattered that the response that I got. I put out a call on my social media for beta readers, and I provided them with a working book blurb, which is, for those not familiar, a blurb is what's located on the back of a novel. Just tells you a little gist of what the story might be about. So that was still, a work in progress, but I gave them enough information to say, like, hey, do you want to be part of this project? And I took on 25, which was absolutely amazing. I was super, super flattered. I don't think I will be taking as many next time, because it was overwhelming for me.
Yeah.
I kind of bit off more than I could chew. And I used the general rule of thumb where, if 3 to 5 readers agree on a certain situation, it needs to be worked on. Yeah. And then, there's going to be varying shades of things that they like or things that they don't care for. But, if we have a little pool that says, that right there doesn't sit well, or that right there, like, I love it, you kind of hit on something, or you need to make a course correction and adjustments. I think next time I would probably use, roughly 5. So that there's
cutting it way down.
Cutting it down, but then, because it's an odd number, there's that tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Great.
So we'll say that is the plan as
moving forward with book 2.
With book 2, exactly.
Well, you've talked me out of ever being a competitor of yours, because the longest thing I've ever had to write was my master's thesis, and that was 11,000 words. And I remember thinking to myself, I'll never be able to come up with 11,000 words for my thesis. But then I reminded myself I've been a reporter for 30 years. Well, 20 years at that point. And I was like, I don't know, overall I've probably written 1 million words. I've just never tied them all together before. But that is impressive. It's particularly for your first work.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit with our other authors as well. So Dom, when we talked to Nicole once before, so I'm going to come back to you first. What was sort of the impetus for your book?
The impetus for my book, which is probably the complete opposite of everything that Laura went through.
Good. That's exactly what we want.
There you go. My book is less than your master's thesis.
All right,
the body of the book is around 10,000 words. The average adult reads about 230 to 240 a minute. You could read this book in less time than this podcast apparently will.
Wow, there you go.
Travel. It's, about a 45-minute read. But it's also written that it could be a devotional and a meditative aid. So if you are the kind of person who reads more slowly, you can take as much time as you want. Beta readers. I had no beta readers. I had basically a chat I was having with someone online in a professional social media setting about what goes into being a publications manager at different think tanks or different publishing houses. And he got saying, if you ever want to do this, you've got to learn at least the self-publishing sites. And I said, I could probably do that. And so I went ahead and looked into, the first one they say is Amazon. Mm-hmm. Look into Amazon self-publishing and self-authoring. So I went through that, and after looking through it for a few days, I said, this would probably work better if I had a book to send through the whole process. So I took a few weeks and wrote a book, and then got it through the self-publishing at Amazon, then went Lulu. Barnes & Noble took much longer because their paperwork as far as getting onto their site and having the permission to upload, that took a lot longer. So I eventually did Barnes & Noble as well. But my book is edited by me. It's written by me. I am
beta read by you.
I am the beta reader. I was the beta person who was going through and saying, nah, that probably wasn't that good. You should change that. So I was my beta reader.
You were the alpha and the omega of your readers.
I was the alpha and the omega
of
of my readers. So it's it's kind of funny because my feedback came after I published it, because the goal wasn't to I want to write a book. Because I've always felt like I wanted to be an author. It was, I want to learn these publishing platforms, so I need a book.
There you go.
So I did everything
the normal
backwards.
way, yeah.
Everything backwards. In fact, I even started getting feedback after it was published. Now it's available on the publishing houses, and so now people can go read it on their Kindle or their Nook, or order a paperback, or even read the previews that are up on the different websites. So I got feedback after everything was out there for the public.
Yeah.
So everybody got to see my first attempt at not only writing, but at navigating how do you use these modern publishing tools to create content, create longer form content, because we've all been to blog sites or read articles online.
Yeah.
I have one of those too, but this was a chance to put out something that could actually be printed, and it can be a physical book. I'm holding one here now, and you could see if I hold it long ways to you how thin this book is.
That's Carrie's kind of book right there.
Yes.
One of my challenges was if on Amazon, if you don't do more than 60 pages, they will not give you a spine.
Oh, that's interesting.
They just staple it down the middle like a magazine. Oh. So I'm sitting there going, oh my goodness, how do I get this to be at least 62 pages? But eventually it all worked out, and I only had a couple of, being my own proofreader, I only had a couple of annoying things that I went back and had to fix. So anyone, I joke with people, anyone who purchased the book before Thanksgiving of 2023, you have a rare collector's item. Because eventually I looked at it and said, oh, I should have italicized that, and that should have been a capital H, and that word is meaningless there and should have come out. And so I was waiting to, should I do that or not? Should I do that or not? And when I eventually launched a Substack that has the same name as the book, Good Neighbor, Bad Citizen, I said, I want to put the Substack on the back cover and on the title page and in the afterword. So now's my chance to italicize those 6 words.
There you go.
And capitalize the H in he when it referred to Jesus this one time where I forgot.
Yeah.
And, take out the one word that was meaningless here, and, do all those little things that I guess a beta reader or a professional proofreader would have caught. I make it sound like it was like a lot to do, but I'm a reporter like you, by trade, an editor by trade, a proofreader by trade. So it wasn't like I was stepping into something I had never done.
Yeah, you were comfortable.
Sure.
Yeah.
The online processes and the publishing houses were the things I had never done before.
Yeah.
But the writing, and Carrie and I know each other through teen ministries, and we also are co-teachers for RCIA here at St. Bridget University Parish. Have been for a couple of years. So I'm used to teaching this material. The Stations of the Cross and Mercy are personal devotions of mine. So that's why I was saying, I got to write a book. What can I hammer out in a few weeks?
Yeah.
It was this. It was things I've taught to people. It's topics I've taught. It's devotionals I've had.
Write about what you know, of course.
Yes, especially if you have to do it quickly. So this was more like a really long, maybe magazine or newspaper series assignment than a book, but in the end, it's printed up and bound and looks like a book.
It's a book.
Yeah,
It
it's a
counts.
book. It's got a spine.
And when you do your second book, I promise you.
Second book.
When you do your second book, I promise you, Carrie will be your beta reader.
Okay.
As long as it's a devotional.
As long as it's barely
45
big
minutes
enough
or
to have a
less.
spine,
Yeah,
right?
45 minutes or less, I'm good.
I think Carrie just wants to be referred to as a beta reader. I think that's a cool. Hey, listen, I've been around writers my entire life. No one's ever asked. I've been asked to edit one thing. I was asked to edit a master thesis, and it was cool. Wow. I got a piece of art out of it. It was great. Actually, it was a great experience. And actually, I learned a lot from it. It was all about marketing. And I will admit that I stole some of my marketing ideas from his thing. So our third author, who we've had before, so welcome back again. And what was your publication journey?
For this book?
Well, for either of your books.
Life. Well, I'm one of these people that I wanted to be a writer since I was 4. And then when I told my parents I was going to get my MFA in poetry, they're like, what are you going to do with your life? Right? So that was 20 years ago. Like you, Mike, and Dom. Not you. The two of you. I'm a working writer. I was an editor-in-chief of magazines for 10 years, and for the last 6 years, I've run my own copywriting business. So I'm a working writer, but I'm also a creative. But as far as poetry, that's funny, right? Because I don't think anybody sets out to be a poet. It's something that chooses you because it's a heavy thing.
Yeah.
It's a heavy thing. So when you say to people, I'm a poet, they're like, oh, okay, all right, what you got that dark outfit on over there. But the truth is, I don't really... There's some funny poetry, but poetry, like for the serious poet, it's a place where you contend with yourself. You enter a room with yourself and you contend with the hard things, and you put that into the poem. And it can be difficult. My husband's like, I can't listen to this right now. It's too much. But my book actually does center around my faith journey. And in this book, a lot of what I'm writing about is grappling with forgiveness. Am I really forgiven? Can I forgive myself? And so I had a breakthrough after I had the book published, and I'm like, oh, I got to write Misericordia, mercy, right? Because now I feel like I got to continue on because these poems need to be more informed. But the way that I wrote my book is over 5 years. I was writing poems, submitting them to journals, getting them accepted, and compiling a manuscript. But it took 5 years because I wanted every poem in there to be something that I loved. And then finally assembled the manuscript, and I had 2 poets read it and give me their feedback. And it was published through Kelsey Books. And like you, Dom, I had to go through and edit my book. And then there were times where I was like, ooh, he has to be capitalized. Guys, go back and fix that. But one thing I did learn, a lot of my poems are very strangely formatted. And that caused so many problems on the page. And I'm like, next book, everything's going to be left margin, short lines, no spacing, super easy. so
Got it set up already.
So that was something that I learned.
Yeah. I guess you can always learn something along the way and kind of refine it with the next one.
Right,
and be able
to
make it, better. Make it the next step along the way.
Particularly when you're talking about something like formatting like this. So I'm flipping through your book now, and that is a unique formatting, and actually several. And
you probably say, how do you pick it? And I go, the poem tells me how it's supposed to look.
Well,
how it's supposed to look on the page.
It's like a form of art. Visually as well as audibly.
I was going to say, because there's multiple layers to writing poetry. There's the art of the language. It's like composing music with words, but it's also the images and it's the feelings it evokes. And what I try to do with my art is have people leave changed or say, I see something of myself. So, I mean, the book itself, there's like lots of themes. It's like motherhood, it's sobriety, it's searching for God, it's contending with, the death of a grandmother. I mean, there's all different types of topics in there that I kind of touch on. But there's no funny poems, though. That's the thing, not one. Not one funny poem in the book at all.
Part 2?
So they're happier poems.
Mercy?
Yes, they're happier
some joy
poems,
there, right?
And they're a little bit more straightforward.
Yeah.
But very narrative. I had a son who was premature by 9 weeks, and so there's a whole section in the book dedicated to him and that experience.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You talked about formatting your book. And when I was going through, whether it was Amazon or Barnes & Noble, formatting was a big deal if you wanted your book available in electronic form as well, because they change all the formatting. Did you make your book available for e-readers?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it is or not.
Because one of the things about e-readers is everybody's e-reader is a little different, and everybody can make their font size bigger and their screen width different.
Sure. I had margins that I had to follow because my publisher was like, you got to set it up for margins, and then they put it on there. So I'm not sure actually if it's available.
When you talked about the visual aspect of publishing, you can do that on a print and decide, what your page size is and everything. I was wondering if you ran into problems if you were intending to make an ebook and if that threw off all your formatting.
I just did one format, so
okay.
I'm not sure if it's an ebook. I should know that, right? I should know if my book is an ebook or not. I don't know.
If somebody can get it on Kindle or Nook, then it's been ebooked. Yeah. That is a big deal. That was one of the things is, formatting is crazy, and every publishing house had a different way of formatting.
And it's tough.
It is. And you self-published, or how much did your publishing house help you?
It's through Kelsey Books.
Okay.
And so that was one of the things, is that I put it into the format. And if all the poems were left justified and short lines, it would have been easy. But no, because everything was,
all over the place.
All over the place, literally. I had to go in there, and it was a lot of work.
Wow.
So that's a lesson learned for the next time.
Laura, for you, did you have to do the formatting? Did you send it to the publishing company and they formatted it for you?
I outsourced both my cover and my formatting. The company who did them was Elite Authors, because this was my debut, and I also know my limitations. So I'm not a graphic designer, and from a technology standpoint, my 13-year-old probably knows more than I do. So I really did not feel comfortable doing that myself. So I did outsource that. I have subsequently learned, we touched on digital conversion, whether it's, paperback or available on an e-reader. And mine is available across multiple platforms as well. But for my next book, I'm going to actually try to format it myself. There's some software out there. Atticus accepts Microsoft Word documents, and Vellum is for writers who are on Mac and Apple products. So for anybody who is listening and, maybe interested in dipping their toe into the self-publishing pool, they're both comparatively priced.
Nice.
And, definitely something I'll be looking into next time around. For the digital conversion, there is a company called Draft to Digital, and they will do it for you for free.
Oh, wow.
Free.
That's very cool. I have to say, you were talking about the covers. I actually say they're very handsome covers. Mm-hmm. And actually, Nicole, I love the fact that you have the nativity.
The nativity.
That is really beautiful. You don't necessarily claim that your poems are necessarily Catholic in nature or Catholic by intent, but there's a Catholicism that sort of like runs through them, right?
That's correct. I'm not a theologian, and I don't think a Catholic publisher would publish this book, because it's my experience with Catholicism. I think you heard the Annunciation poem.
Yes.
That one, right? So it's my interpretation. I mean, there's nothing not Catholic in there,
it's
know
not,
what I mean? But
it's not heretical or anything.
No, right.
Yeah.
It's not heretical, but it is. But right, as a layperson who is finding my way through, my spiritual journey, it's my experience, and there's, I mean, some of the blurbs on the back that everybody wrote, it's all about my journey, and like they're hymns to God, and they're meditative, and it's redemptive. It's like you can be anyone yesterday, but today you can start over.
Right.
And I think that's an important message for a lot of people.
Now, Dom, yours, because of its nature, your book because of its nature, yours is a bit more Catholic. Yours and intentional in that regard.
It's intentionally the gospel accounts of Jesus's way of the cross and his persecution. It is. It's written from that standpoint, but most of the feedback I've gotten is from people who either they may be culturally Christian, because it's tough to grow up in the U.S. and not at least know a little bit culturally about Christianity. You've heard the name Jesus, you've heard Christ, you've heard Christmas.
Sure, yeah, of course.
You've heard people saying keep Christ in Christmas, and maybe you've wondered what that is. But like for instance, I'll tell you, when I put the book up on Amazon, it charted best in Amazon's anarchism charts. It was the #1 hot new release in the anarchism charts. It got as high as overall #4 in anarchism.
Is it because of the title, Bad Citizen?
Well, it's not only the title; it's the book itself, Good Neighbor, Bad Citizen.
Interesting.
It's all about that. It also charted not quite as high in Christian devotionals and ethics and morality. All these little tiny categories on Amazon where it doesn't take much to hit their top 50s. It's not like you're in general popular reading or anything, but in niche categories. I joke that I don't know if any hardcore churchgoers have found the book yet, because I haven't gotten any 1-star reviews. So the people who really take into the book and are people who some of them have expressed that they're not Christian, but the subject matter was interesting to them, and they wanted to look more into it.
Oh, that's good.
After reading it.
I mean, it seems to me that some folks are considering yours sort of a resource book, which is kind of, I guess, what it is when you consider
how you intended. It might be an introduction for them, because there's probably a lot of people. I know there's some people who've read this book who've told me I never looked into it this much before.
Yeah.
Or I had never written, I'd never, because there's gospel passages cited all over the place. Yeah. There's dozens of little gospel references in there. And, they said, I've never read little bits of scripture like that, I didn't know that was in there.
We're Catholic. We don't read scriptures. That's the problem. But that's the joke every Protestant makes.
Yes, all right.
But it's true. Catholics by our nature, we typically don't crack open a Bible, not because we're against it, not because it's just we use missals, we use excerpts from the Bible as a general rule.
All over masses.
Exactly. It's typically it's just the nature of how our liturgy runs, right?
Yes.
It's not that we're ignoring the rest of it. It's just we've kind of figured out how to nail down the important parts. Not that all of it isn't important, but that's why books like that are so great, because you might be pulling from something that's atypical that you would have been hearing. And if you're someone who doesn't understand the Catholic liturgy, if you're a Protestant or an atheist, and you're looking for those connections, it's nice to see that you've provided them in your book, so people can be aware.
I hope so. It's for curious, open-minded people.
Yeah.
Which means, we like to think that like everybody in the church fits that category, but it doesn't. No. And there's people outside the church who fit that category. Yeah. So it's for curious, open-minded people who will, take the time to spend 45 minutes reading continuously, if they can do it.
A reasonable, and actually I have to give you a lot of credit. Not only is it a reasonable 45 pages, you have an outstanding contents page.
Thank you.
It is excellent, because I was looking at it and I was like, wait, I know exactly where to go for this, which is not always the case in some stuff. But for you got this thing broken down nicely into 5 different chapters. You got the stations busted out. I love it. I think it really is a well constructed book, which is even more impressive. I was going to say, which is even more impressive for being self published. You put a lot of good thought into it. So how long did it take you to write this?
Probably around 4 weeks or so to write it and get it proofread enough where I was ready to really jump in and start sending the document through the publishing houses and get back, my author's copy and read things. And also the covers you're mentioning, obviously we're doing an audio podcast, but the covers of Nicole and Laura's books are very intricate and beautiful. I also worked with someone on this cover. I'm not a visually expressive person. And I said, I need something very simple, because most people will be looking at this like maybe an inch high on their phones, tablets, or desktop computers. So I want something that doesn't get lost when it's shrunk down to this big. Mm-hmm. And so I was kind of the art director, even though I don't have the art skills. Mm-hmm. And so I wound up with something that was incredibly simple as a cover. It's black on yellow, which stands out. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of, the T in Citizen is kind of an artistic cross.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's.
Well, Carrie, I mean, you're a graphic designer. Do you approve?
I think for the goals, they were met. The goals were met.
Yep.
I mean, I prefer something a little more visually intricate. So, my eye will go to definitely the other two over that one, just because it's inviting. But as far as something like bold and stand out, if you're going for a goal that's something 1 inch small, because even on the back you have like a little graphic icon of the front cover, at least on the copy I have. And it's like, oh, there it is, like in small version, and it's still you could still read it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Nicole, how long, each of your books, about how long do they take you to come up with, and from let's say beginning to end?
Yeah, so this one was like 5 years.
5 years.
Because I was, copywriting and writing articles, and then the poetry always goes to the side. Plus, it's like that inspirational thing. Like, I'll sit there and write bits and snippets and stuff, and then finally it's like, all right, it's time to write the poem. Got to sit down and do it. But it's like not something I can necessarily do every day. It is kind of like, being stereotypical, the muse has to hit.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it takes longer. Because when I try to do there's a thing in April, is like write a poem a day. It gets really stressful because you start out, you're like, oh, it's really good. And then you get to like day 8 and you're like, these drafts are really bad. They're really bad. And like for me, I don't want to write bad drafts. I want to write good drafts, because if it's bad, I'm like, you're out of here, bye-bye, leave. So I try to write my notes down and have everything, and then when I feel like the heart of the poem, then I sit down and I write a pretty good draft.
Yeah.
So it took a long time.
That's okay. And both your books were around the same?
Probably about the same, yeah, because the other book I think was 2015 when it came out.
So you just started doing Misericordia? Mm-hmm. And we'll see that in 2028? I
don't know. I want to write it faster.
Stay tuned.
I'm doing a little bit of a simpler style, a little bit shorter poems. So I'm trying to do something a little different with this.
What is the amount of poems in the current book? How many?
It's like 60 something.
Okay,
poems.
so that's a good amount.
So it's a lot. I mean, and also when you're writing poems, you're kind of writing around themes, but it's not like, you have like your plot and your arc, and you got to come up with all these characters and stuff. So I just have a bunch of poems, right? And then I print out all the pages and I'm like, all right, let's start putting them into sections.
Not just a bunch of poems.
I mean, no, I'm saying, but it's a little bit more of an organic process where when you have the poems, you start organizing them. And there's lots of ways. I've read so many how to organize your poetry book, and I will tell you, not one of them has worked for me. You have to organically do it as an artist. What is the arc that you want people to experience? What's the first poem? What's the gateway? What's the last poem? What are the sections? What are the epigraphs that you choose in each section? It happens super organically. And then you put it together and you have people read it. You read it and you kind of see where things, might need to be changed around, or even like, hey, I need an extra poem here, extra poem there. But I feel like in this book, the arc is redemptive. And it does, when you come to the end, you do feel like you've seen this person's spiritual journey. I mean, mine. I'm not supposed to say mine, but it is mine.
Sure.
But other people can live through that though too, and relate, and as well in their own redemption as well.
Yeah.
Whereas Dom's, you got redemption, but it's like station 1 through 14. I mean, you're not changing that. I
put a bonus station at the end where Jesus rises from the dead.
Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to. Yeah, it's kind of you're going through just this really sad.
Yeah.
It's the sorrowful mysteries. It's a really sad journey.
Yeah.
And I really admire each of you being able to develop a narrative structure, Nicole and Laura. I don't do that kind of thing, so fortunately for me it was already done for me. Like I have the historical accounts of Jesus going through his Stations of the Cross. All I had to do was kind of dig into it and get deeply into it. I didn't have to come up with characters. I didn't have to come up with a plot. I didn't have to come up with an overarching story arc and then smaller story arcs. It was there for me already.
Sure.
So I really admire you guys, the work that you had to go into creating all of that underlying stuff before the words hit the page.
Yeah.
That's a lot of thinking and a lot of creativity and inventiveness going into it, right?
Yeah.
Laura, I'm curious, how long did it take you to get your book from beginning to end?
Oh boy. So mine was a very long journey. The story of one of my romance story arcs was one that I used to tell myself in my head when my son, who is now 13, was an infant. He was a really bad sleeper, and audiobooks, were relatively new. I didn't have access to one, so I would just rock him and, tell it to myself in my head so I wouldn't fall asleep with this baby. Mm-hmm. Then a few years later, it was something that was still kind of needed to clear out the cobwebs. So I wrote a short story, literally out of nowhere. My background is in life insurance. I have a criminal justice degree, so I kind of fell into life insurance, investigating white collar crime.
Wow.
So I wrote, a lot of business paperwork, a lot of legal documents, but never fiction. So to write a short story was really out of left field. But I think everything is on God's time.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
And by the time I showed my husband the short story, which was about 6 months after it was written, I said, I think this is something I really want to tackle. It is a historical fiction genre. I want to get my facts straight. It's about our area. I grew up in South Jersey. I worked in Philadelphia. Like, this place is important to me. These people are important to me. I want to do it right. The research itself took about 2 years. And I'm a working mom as well. But so that kind of, added, I would do things in my free time, and I just kept asking for more time. And then here comes COVID. But again, that's God's time, because I wrote the bulk of it, during the pandemic. It does cover, it is historical fiction. It does cover parts of the Spanish flu. So writing about a pandemic while living through a pandemic,
interesting.
That was cathartic and somewhat, I don't want to say projecting, but I really tried to do right by both pandemics and those who were lost during the pandemics. And by the time it went to press, it was about 4 years as a work in progress between research and drafting and publication.
Wow.
But it's been with me, much longer. But I think, that's part of his plan.
Yeah. And you said there was a reference to St. Michael in part of it. Can you talk very briefly on that reference?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. So, and I just from a content warning, it is a fiction narrative. So it does pertain to, war. So there may be scenes in the novel that might not be for every reader. Mm-hmm. So I just feel like cautioning that.
Yeah.
So I'm a survivor of adverse childhood experiences, including, domestic violence and child abuse. So that is also kind of built into the narrative with my characters. And there's a really pivotal scene that's actually the cover shot, so that when those who see the cover will resonate with this scene in the book. But one of the main characters does reference the prayer of St. Michael, who is the protector. He's the great protector. Mm-hmm. And it's a major plot point. So I can't say anything more than that.
Okay, fair enough.
Aside from, that, as like having those experiences and using my voice through my characters and trying to really present the material in a way that's realistic, to give a voice to the voiceless. Using that prayer at that time, was definitely intentional on my part. Mm. And, I might not be here, if not, for like God and the Holy Spirit, I might not be here with you lovely people right now. We all have a path and we all have experiences, and I'm just really grateful,
Yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, thank you all for coming with us today. We really appreciate that. Thank you all for your devotion to writing. Carrie and I both apologize for not being good readers. Maybe this will inspire us to read, at the very least, your books. But with us today was Dom Scarcella. Good Neighbor, Bad Citizen is his book. We have Nicole Rollender, The Luster of Everything, I'm Already Forgetting, and Laura Quinn, Thicker Than Water. And very quickly, where can they get your books, Laura?
My book is available across all major platforms.
Okay. And Nicole?
Basically the same, or Kelsey Books.
Okay. And Dom?
Search for Good Neighbor, Bad Citizen on Amazon.com, on Barnes & Noble's website, at Lulu.com, and at Substack if you want to continue the conversation with a weekly article related to the theme.
Even better. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, thank you all. Have a very happy New Year. And to our listeners, we'll talk to you again soon.
God bless.